Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, and my friends, today we're going to pose you an interesting question. In fighting games, just who exactly is the greatest grappler of them all? Obviously, over the games, over the years, we got lots of candidates, lots of people that like just chucking and throwing other people. And, well, just what exactly makes a character great at whatever archetype they happen to be anyways? So this was a question actually originally posed on Twitter by one Snake Eyes himself, the Zangief playing legend. And it spawned some interesting responses, and I'll link the whole Twitter thread for you in the video description if you want to check it out. And I thought about it myself, well, just who exactly is the greatest grappler of them all? If you follow along on the channel, hey, we're very grappler friendly here, to the point where frankly, I'll be biased towards the grappler character of any given fighting game that we're talking about. I'll be the first to admit it. I just love the big characters. I love all the grapplers. If you throw someone, odds are I'm probably going to play you. So that said, what makes a grappler design great exactly? And obviously it can't just be physical design or something like that, right? Grapplers come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Usually grapplers are the large character, but not always. There's plenty of characters over the years that, you know, are either medium size or even small size and quick, and their grappler is just the same as the rest. So just like look, appearance, aesthetics, all that doesn't really matter. Although, you know, when it comes to design, just Shermie's design is just really well thought out, you know. And obviously just having a grab doesn't make you a grappler, otherwise we'd be calling Fei Long a grappler, and yeah, no. Obviously, a big part of any grappler is the grab, right? Naturally enough. And having a really cool grab that's either silly, funny, or just, you know, plain old strong, that's a big part of it. We actually made a video showcasing a lot of these iconic grabs not too long ago. That'll also be linked for you in the video description. But yeah, you know, cool grab, big part of it, but not the only part of it. There's just a lot of factors at play, honestly. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to give you 3 candidates that I believe can contend for the greatest grappler of them all. And I'll explain why they might exactly be that. But before that, there's going to be some, you know, famous names that aren't going to make the cut. So I just want to give them their due here real quick. So there's no avoiding it. We got to talk Zangief first, all right? Do I think Zangief is the, you know, most iconic grappler of all time? Yes. Do I think he's the poster boy for the archetype? Yes. But do I think he's the greatest of all time? Well, that's the thing, right? Zangief's very good at doing the Zangief thing, but he's not necessarily the greatest in my book. When I'm thinking things like greatest, I'm thinking, you know, more than just being the big lumbering lummox that works his way in. That's great. That's kind of the selling point of the archetype a lot of the time, right? But the characters I'm going to talk about can do a lot of different things. But yes, absolutely Zangief. I'm going to give you your roses. When it comes to being, you know, what grapplers are all about in the end, you are the top dog. Next up, obviously, Potemkin, probably the second most famous grappler besides Zangief himself. And Potemkin, much the same, right? Yo, he big, he's slow, and when he gets you all the way to the bank, for sure. But that's kind of all Potemkin is, and, you know, very much by design, right? Potemkin just isn't much other than the big, slow, lumbering lummox. And yes, when he finally gets on you, it's scary, right? And that's a big part of the grappler selling point, is the grappler fear of once the grappler, he finally bridges the gap one way or shape or another, right? He's finally there, he's finally on top of you, and then, oh lordy, it's just gonna get bad really quick, right? And for some of the characters I have in mind here, they just do that better, right? They instill that grappler fear faster and at more ranges than, you know, the more slower characters. They have more options. They can just do more things. So once again, Potemkin, lovely example of grappledom. I love Potemkin. I've been very clear about that over the years. But just not quite on the same level as, you know, greatest grappler as some of these other people I'm going to talk about. I know some of y'all are thinking, hey, what about King, right? And, well, King's all right, but y'all are only thinking about King because there's been no competition in the 3D space for too long. By Tekken standards, in Virtua Fighter, literally every single character is a grappler. That's just how much stronger they are, the whole grappling thing. And King started as a knockoff of Wolf, and frankly, he's never matched up to Wolf in any way as far as I'm concerned. All right, so now all that said, I'm going to give you 3 choices that I think could stand for greatest grappler of them all, and I'll give you my thoughts why. Now, first of our 3 characters I'm going to talk about is Iron Tager. Iron Tager is exactly the reason why I can't put Zangief or Potemkin here, because Tager is the ultimate evolution of the slow big body grappler as far as I'm concerned. He does everything those 2 characters do and way, way more. So 1, yes, out of the gate, does he got the big grab? You betcha. It's even one of the better ones in my books. And can he do, you know, big boy grappler things like if you're trying to run away and do fireballs, I can like armor through them. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can do that all day long. Big boy grappler armor, definitely on deck. And of course, you know, a lot of other grappler classics of the big boys. Did I catch you jumping? Well, I can still slam you with an anti-air grab. The thing he holds over the other big boy grapplers is the whole grappler fear thing, right? You know, it's so scary when the big slow guy finally gets in, does the thing, right? But he just does it in such a more interesting way because he has the magnetize mechanic. And if he can magnetize you, all of a sudden, you know, those big grabs, he can do them from way further away because, you know, he's magnetic. If you're magnetic, he can pull you in against your will, and that's a really cool concept. I remember, God, however many years ago Vanilla BlazBlue came out, and I first saw Tager, I was blown away. Just the whole concept of like any basic, you know, tick grab scenario gets scarier when he can bring you in, right? And also the magnetized normals also work with themselves. Generally, you know, the bigger characters like a Zangief or Potemkin, they have, you know, the big boy normal, right? But the thing about Tager, the big boy normal, gets extra big because he can pull you in against your will to smack you with the big boy normal, right? Everything about the whole magnetized mechanic is genius, especially on the slow, big, large character. And the scenarios where, say, he's struggling to apply it, right? The fact that he has Spark Bolt and, you know, once in every now and a while, you can say, screw you, you know, full screen, you're magnetized, right? Maybe it hits, maybe it doesn't. Also gives him a counter zoning tool, which is very strong, right? And if it hits, you get the bounce, you can combo out. And when you're magnetized too, even things that are normally safe against grapplers like jumping becomes not safe, right? It does, you know, become the fight. The fight is now not just necessarily to just be beside you, but at some point to magnetize you, and that changes the whole dynamic of the match. But that's what makes Tager so dynamic and so cool. I can't stress enough, especially the first time I ever saw Tager, right? Tager to me was revolutionary, right? He took what the usual, you know, big lumbering grappler archetype was and just kind of completely flipped it on its head. He's still big, he's still lumbering, you know, he still eventually wants to get you with a thing, but he can just do so much more than a Potemkin or a Zangief could. And that's what made him so cool. And just the fact that Tager's combo structure looks so much cooler than the rest too, thanks to the fun things magnetism can do. Just stuff like that, like using a bunch of magnetism in the combo, ending with Gadget Finger, which is like a restand against their will, of which, you know, hey, threaten, grab, or strike, all that kind of stuff, right? Just as a grappler, Tager is the most dynamic version of the big boy grappler. We're going to talk about other grapplers that are a little bit different, right? But when it comes to that, you know, most traditional grappler mold, I find Iron Tager is the best example of it. Now, we can't have greatest grappler discussion without eventually dipping into King of Fighters. It's just not possible, right? Not the least of which is like half of all King of Fighters characters ever have a command grab. So, KOF, SNK, pretty grappler pilled. The only question is like, who do we pick? We're like spoiled for choices, honestly, when it comes to SNK grappling. One obvious choice certainly has to be Goro Daimon, right? Goro Daimon is definitely a big boy's big boy. When it comes to grappling, he's pretty alright. And he can do a lot of fun things, like he can force you to engage with him from full screen thanks to things like his Earth Shaker, right? And he's just a really solid all-around pick, but he's not going to be my pick. We have other characters like Shermie and Orochi Yashiro. Shermie is one of the best examples of what we call a pixie grappler, where she's, you know, smaller and quick and can reach you from pretty far away on grabs that are pretty hard to check. And Orochi Yashiro, he's a straight up dunk master. And then there's Vice, who's my favorite. Although the point of this video isn't necessarily pick my favorites, right? Although, if we were, I'd be picking Vice. Just telling you. In the end, I'm gonna go with Clark still, one half of the Akari Warriors. So why Clark over all the other choices? Well, you know, there is a small factor of the fact he is iconic as perhaps the main SNK grappler. He also avoids a lot of the pit traps, like say Goro. Goro is very big, Clark is not big. Clark also is not slow. Clark can move, you know, mostly thanks to the KOF SNK engine, right? He can run, all that kind of stuff. He's not bound by some of the usual weaknesses of being a grappler, being big and slow. No, he's just as big as a normal sized character, and he's moderately quick. Also, well, I don't want to necessarily count tiers in this discussion, right? Clark's usually pretty decent to great. In the most current rendition of King of Fighters 15, which you're looking at right now, he's very good. And very good is usually not a term we associate with grapplers, to be frank. So basically now, right, why Clark? Does Clark got the grabs? You betcha. In fact, Clark being an SNK character, not only does he got the grabs, he's got like the grabs. The standard command grab for Clark is 1 frame. You know, something like Street Fighter. Street Fighter is considered very fast compared to most games at 5 frames for a command grab to go off. Clark, his goes off on a single frame. And as an added bonus, most of the time, you can also get follow-ups after his command grabs for a nice little bit of extra damage. That's great. Also, depending on the games, the base command grab also has some multiple versions. There's a little bit of a variance. You can go for that quick grab, yes, absolutely, but we also have a slower grab, and why would we want to do that? The slower one has what we call a guard point, otherwise usually known as armor. And the thing about that is you can tank through stuff. Even super moves, as you're seeing right here, right? A straight up super move, I can tank through it and still throw you on the other end. And since it's a guard point and not armor, I don't even take damage. So say you're going to do something on your wake up. I think you are, right? And I can just say, nah, I'll just tank through that and still throw you anyways. And the grabs don't end there. That's kind of the thing, right? This is where it gets, you know, a little scary. Because we have the Frankensteiner, which only appears every now and then in King of Fighters. And the Frankensteiner is Dragon Punch, if you will. It is a reversal. It is a fully invincible command grab. Like, if you want to throw a fireball, I can go through it with my grab. And of course, as we showed earlier, I can armor through anything too, right? So I can armor through something, or I have, and the equivalent of a Dragon Punch, a fully invincible move to get you. So say you're going to do something big and crazy coming my way, and like, wow, that sucks for me, right? Depending on the move, depending on how I face it down, I can literally Frankensteiner you right through your move, even if it's a big, fancy, super move. So on its most base level, yeah, Clark has, you know, the big scary grab. That's cool. But he also has the armored grab. He has invincible grabs. He's not big. He's not slow. He's not lumbering. He's fast enough for what he needs to be, which is way faster than most grapplers. In KOF 15 specifically, if you're looking to spend a little bit of meter, his grab also becomes a juggle starter, and you can get full combos from it. That's pretty alright. He's got a whole whack of super grabs that are extra devastating. And also, usually, depending on the game, they usually have a little fun with the camera angles, because you'll just dunk you over and over and over. If you run away and zone him, he's got a run grab super as well, and he'll take you corner to corner, post to post, and just keep the dunks going. It's hard to keep Clark out, because he can run, he has KOF movement, like the rolls, all the kind of stuff. He's just more difficult to keep out than the usual grappler. And then once he gets in, his options for grappling are insane. You know, visually, Clark's just an army guy. He's not like as insane as like a Taker is or whatever. But when it comes to that grappler fear part, Clark, it's not difficult for him to get in thanks to the usual King of Fighters systems. And once he gets in, he has a plethora of options, way more than the average grappler, and that's why he's here. And the third choice I have for greatest grappler of all of fighting game history is Solomon Grundy. And Solomon Grundy does not get the respect he deserves. He does not get the accolades he deserves. I once had to make a whole video talking about just how great of a design Grundy is, which is a shame almost. Because a common complaint in NRS games, Injustice or Mortal Kombat, is they usually struggle with grapplers, but in Injustice 1, on their first try with Injustice, they made one of the greatest grapplers of all time, and they've never matched up ever since. So why is Grundy so good? So yeah, he's a bigger character, sure, but yo, that mobility, he can run faster dashing than like some actual King of Fighters characters can. Are you crazy? Like, look at that. Like, speed is not an issue for Grundy, right? And Grundy also is a character you can't afford to lay him out all the time either, right? Because Grundy's got Swamp Hands. And Swamp Hands are a full screen tracking low, has to be blocked low. So if you're just trying to zone him out or lay him out, like, he can engage with you anywhere on the screen, which again is avoiding, you know, a lot of the usual grappler problems, right? If you're just trying to lay him out and he doesn't have to play that game the same way, that's a little difficult now, isn't it? Not the least of which, we talked about that, we talked about the speed. If you enhance the move, it becomes a capture state. Like, literally, they're stuck. And even from very literally full screen, he can still get you and combo you, right? So he's a grappler you can't afford to ignore. And this is before we even get to why the grabs are good, right? And not the least of which, that whole grappler fear thing we talked about. He's really good at that too, because just being near him, when he gets all stinky, he can force you to take damage against your will just by being in proximity with the character. Like, that's just one of his traits. It's just a thing he can do. You'll take damage just by being beside him. Doesn't matter if you block the mix, you jump, whatever. Take damage just by being beside him. And there's so many other little fun traits about the character. I'll link that video for you in the video description if you want to check it out, where we go in depth with Grundy. But let's talk the grab, because he's got one of the coolest grab systems ever. Because it's more than just the base grab. He has the base grab, and the base grab, sure, great. Also, it helps that the base grab, on top of being advancing, is armored as well. So again, it's one of those deals where it's kind of hard to keep Grundy off you. It's really good like that. But the thing is, Grundy has the trait grab system. So he does have, you know, the base grab, you know, command grab, right? And it's good, it goes forwards, armored, all that. But he can also grab you just by hitting his trait button. And this is where the magic is. So if you're looking here at the screen, you notice there's a lot of options, right? Because he has chain grabs, you choose the first part. You hit trait, you get the grab, great. And then the rest of this just is, you know, okay, which way are we going? He has 3 chains, and all these chains grant a buff to you, and all these buffs are permanent until you change and like do another chain grab if you so choose. We have the power chain. So basically at the end of each hit, you just input the new part of the chain and you go from there. And you can see here, you know, 25% for a grab, not bad. And, you know, did cool tombstone pile driver and all that. But here's the strong part of that. Okay, so let's do like, you know, basic NRS uppercut, you know, down 2, right? Okay, does 5% damage. Now we're going to do our power chain again. And, you know, we're just going to let it rock as it was. And we get our damage in, which is all fine and dandy, right? And now we do that down 2 again. Now it does 6%. So what's going on here is now literally every move I do for the rest of the match, unless I change my buff, will just straight up do more damage. It's not a lot more damage, but it is more damage. In fact, if we go for like literally the same grab that we went for before, even that will now do more damage. Like, it buffs itself, right? We now do 28 instead of 25. So if we so choose, off, you know, a basic grab, which we're going to aim for anyways, we can now permanently buff our damage for the rest of the match. There's also the health chain. So same deal. We input the correct motions here. And this one actually does a lot more damage. Just 31% damage, right? And the associated buff we get with this one is now we, as Grundy, take less damage across the board. So now we have more effective health. So once again here, like a basic down 2, right? It deals 5% to us. Now we got our, you know, pretty damaging grab in, and we're going to do the same deal. And now, after we get bonked, now it's only going to do 4%. So not a lot less, yes. So granted, like the damage buff, it's not huge, but it's permanent. It's for the rest of the match. And it's off doing, you know, a basic grab sequence you would kind of be wanting to aim for anyways, right? It's a true grab, it's unblockable, and Grundy being Grundy, you know, like back 1, all that kind of stuff. He can end combos in back 1, and then he basically forces you to guess 50-50 on the spot, and he's directly in your face with massive frame advantage. Extra scary as well, just with Injustice, right? Say if you, you know, eat the mix in the corner and die, you die in the corner and you start back in the corner, right? Because that's how Injustice works. You wake up where you lost. So yeah, it can get rough. And then there's the defense chain. So defense chain, you know, he's still dunking you. Don't worry about that. That's how Grundy do. And he's going to drown you a little bit for extra flair, right? And once again, they all do different damage values. So what's different about this one? This one, you take much less chip damage. And NRS in general, but especially Injustice 1 of all games, mildly famous for the zoning, right? Zoning and just chip damage in general, very large concern. So when you're blocking all this nonsense here, and you can notice here, it can definitely add up on the damage, right? And now we have that buff live. All right, so now buff live here, and we're going to enable, you know, Deathstroke doing the thing Deathstroke does. And now look at our health. Like, we're basically just not taking chip. Like, we're taking an incredibly small amount, yes, but it's literally negligible, right? So now, if I was like so inclined, I can do just the old walk and block much more effectively. Like, it's still annoying. You still gotta block. You gotta be patient, right? But now chip damage just almost doesn't exist. So that's the thing about these various different buffs. Once you get your chain grab in, you have to determine, okay, which one's going to carry us for the match. Like, the usual defense one is pretty alright, because the grab itself does the most damage of all the other grabs, right? And you can't go wrong just simply taking less damage. But then again, you can't go wrong doing more damage. And in certain matchups, like Deathstroke or, you know, Injustice not short on characters with good projectiles, right? A lot of matchups, okay, maybe I just don't want to take the chip, because certain characters, Aquaman especially, Aquaman can just kill you purely off chip damage, right? So being able to tailor your matchup experience based off how you grab the enemy in particular is really good. And once again, Grundy has a trait grab. He's got an armored advancing grab. He has, you know, other things that make it difficult to be beside him, like the fart cloud. He doesn't have to respect zoning like some other grapplers. In fact, if you try to run from a full screen, you can actually definitely pay the price, and he can combo you right into the chain grab, right? He's a viable character. Well, I say viable character. He's awful, right? Injustice 1 tier list is something else. But as a grappler concept, which is what we're talking about here, right? He's a very viable character at all ranges of the screen. He can always do something. And when he finally lays his hands on you, which is what all grapplers want to do, he then has a multi-layered path that affects how the rest of the match will play out, and that is super, super cool. Grundy is a triumph of grappler design as far as I'm concerned, and that's why he's on my list. And all that said, that is the list. So I have 3 options, and I would love to hear what you guys think about it. Agree or disagree? I'm sure you have some of your own picks for greatest grappler. Feel free to post those in the comments below. Grapplers are pretty cool, y'all. I'm something of a fan myself. So I'll keep spreading the good word as best I can. And all that said, that is indeed the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. And go out and play some fighting games.